Hey there, welcome to my channel. Today, I want to share a personal story from my college days that still makes my heart race when I think about it. It's about an unexpected moment in my chemistry lab that changed the dynamic between me and my lab partner in ways I never anticipated. I'm not usually one to spill my personal life online, but there's something about this experience that I think many of you might relate to, that moment when attraction and reality collide in the most unexpected places. So there I was, a sophomore chemistry major at Westfield University, juggling classes, a part-time job at the campus bookstore, and trying to figure out who I really was. College is weird like that. You're thrown into this environment where you're supposed to become an adult while simultaneously discovering your identity. For me, part of that journey involved coming to terms with my sexuality. I'd known I was gay since high school, but college was where I was finally starting to feel comfortable in my own skin. Chemistry lab was always the highlight of my week, not because I particularly loved the tedious experiments or the strong smell of chemicals that would linger on my clothes for days, but because of my lab partner, Alex. Now, let me paint a picture of Alex for you. He was tall, about 6 feet 2 inches, with this messy brown hair that somehow always looked perfectly disheveled. He had these intense green eyes that would narrow in concentration whenever we were measuring chemicals. In his forearms, I know this sounds specific, but trust me, whenever he'd roll up his sleeves to work, I'd find myself staring. The thing about Alex was that he was unquestionably straight. He had a girlfriend back home who he'd talk about occasionally, showing me pictures of their hiking trips or telling me about their plans for the upcoming break. But we had this chemistry, not just the subject we were studying, but a natural ease between us. We worked well together, anticipating each other's moves in the lab, finishing each other's sentences when we were writing up reports. It was the kind of partnership that made 3-hour labs fly by. Our professor, Dr. Martinez, was notorious for assigning complex experiments that required precise measurements and careful attention to detail. She would walk around the lab with her clipboard, peering over students' shoulders and making notes. Getting her approval was like winning a small lottery, rare and immensely satisfying. Alex and I had developed a reputation for being one of the most efficient teams in the class, which made Dr. Martinez scrutinize our work even more closely. On this particular Tuesday afternoon, we were conducting an experiment involving a moderately strong acid solution. The lab was buzzing with the usual energy, the clinking of glass beakers, the hissing of Bunsen burners, the occasional curse when someone made a measurement error. The air was thick with concentration and the faint smell of chemicals. Alex and I were working side by side in our station, methodically following the procedure outlined in our lab manual. Let me explain the setup of our experiment. We were analyzing the reaction rates of different metal samples when exposed to varying concentrations of hydrochloric acid. Nothing groundbreaking, but it required careful handling of the acid solutions. We had several beakers lined up, each containing different concentrations, and we were systematically recording observations as we dropped small metal samples into each one. Alex was in charge of handling the acid solutions while I was responsible for the metal samples and recording our observations. We had fallen into this rhythm over the semester, playing to our strengths. He had steadier hands for pouring, and I had an eye for detail when it came to observing and documenting reactions. "Can you pass me the 0.5 molar solution?" Alex asked, holding out his hand without looking up from the lab manual. I reached for the beaker, our fingers brushing briefly as I handed it to him. These small moments of contact had become both a torture and a pleasure for me, innocent to him, but sending electricity through my veins. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Alex turned to reach for his notebook, and his elbow caught the edge of another beaker, the one containing our most concentrated acid solution. I watched in horror as the beaker tipped, the clear liquid arcing through the air before splashing across the front of Alex's white lab shirt. "Shit," he yelled, jumping back. The reaction was immediate, both from Alex and from everyone around us. Dr. Martinez's head snapped up, and she was at our station in seconds. "Emergency shower, now," she commanded, pointing to the safety station at the back of the lab. Alex was already pulling at his shirt, buttons flying as he ripped it open. The acid wasn't particularly dangerous on brief skin contact, but clothing would absorb it and prolong exposure. The next few moments were chaos. Alex rushed to the emergency shower with Dr. Martinez right behind him. The rest of the class had stopped their experiments, all eyes on the unfolding drama. I quickly neutralized the spill on our workbench with the base solution we kept for such accidents, my heart pounding with adrenaline. After a minute under the shower, Alex emerged, his shirt soaked and partially discolored where the acid had made contact. His chest and stomach were reddened but not seriously burned. The quick response had prevented any real damage. Dr. Martinez was examining his skin, asking about pain levels and sensation. "You're lucky," she said finally. "No serious burns, but you'll need to change that shirt immediately and maybe apply some burn cream from the first aid kit." The problem was, Alex didn't have another shirt. We hadn't planned on getting soaked during lab, and his backpack was in his dorm across campus. That's when he looked at me, water dripping from his hair down his face, his ruined shirt clinging to his chest. "Hey, do you have anything I could borrow? I can't exactly walk across campus like this," he said, gesturing to his transparent, wet shirt that was now developing holes where the acid had eaten through the fabric. My mind raced. I did have a spare shirt. I always kept one in my backpack because I was perpetually spilling coffee on myself. But the thought of Alex wearing my clothes sent a flutter through my stomach that I tried desperately to ignore. "Yeah, I've got a t-shirt in my bag," I managed to say, trying to sound casual. "It might be a bit small on you, though." At this point, I'd wear a crop top if it meant getting out of this wet shirt, he laughed, and the tension broke slightly. Dr. Martinez instructed us to use the storage room adjacent to the lab for the shirt change. "And then come right back to clean up your station," she added sternly, though her eyes were sympathetic. The storage room was little more than a closet. Shelves stacked with extra beakers, flasks, and chemical supplies lined the walls, leaving barely enough space for two people to stand. I rummaged through my backpack and pulled out my spare shirt, a simple navy blue tee with my university's logo across the chest. "Here," I said, handing it to him. "It's not fancy, but it's dry." "You're a lifesaver," Alex said, already peeling off his wet lab shirt. And there I was, trapped in a tiny room with a half-naked Alex, trying desperately to look anywhere but at his bare chest. It was like a scene from a rom-com, except there was nothing funny about the way my heart was hammering against my ribs. Alex had the kind of body that came from years of casual sports, not overly muscular, but defined in all the right places. A light trail of hair ran down from his navel, disappearing into the waistband of his jeans. I pretended to be very interested in organizing my backpack. "Man, that was close," Alex said, seemingly oblivious to my internal crisis. "Another few seconds and that acid would have reached skin. Thanks for reacting so quickly with the neutralizer." "No problem," I mumbled, still avoiding eye contact. "That's what lab partners are for, right?" The space was so confined that as he moved to pull my shirt over his head, his elbow gently bumped my shoulder. "Sorry," he said, his voice muffled through the fabric. "Not much room in here." And that's when it happened, the moment that would replay in my mind for weeks afterward. As Alex pulled my shirt down over his torso, he was standing so close that I could feel his breath on my face. For a split second, our eyes met, and something passed between us, a moment of recognition, of awareness. The air in the tiny room seemed to thicken, charged with an energy I couldn't name. My shirt was indeed a bit small on him, stretching across his broader shoulders and riding up slightly at the waist. There was something strangely intimate about seeing him in my clothes, like a boundary had been crossed that we couldn't uncross. "How do I look?" he asked with a half-smile, smoothing down the front of the shirt. I swallowed hard. "It fits better than I thought it would," I said, aiming for a light tone but hearing the strain in my own voice. We were standing so close that I could smell the clean scent of his skin underneath the lingering chemical odor from the lab. I could see a small freckle on his collarbone that I'd never noticed before. I was acutely aware of my own breathing, trying to keep it steady and failing miserably. For a moment, just a moment, I thought I saw something flicker in his eyes. A question, perhaps, or a realization. His smile faltered slightly, and his gaze dropped to my lips for the briefest instant before he cleared his throat and stepped back as much as the small space would allow. "We should probably get back out there before Dr. Martinez sends a search party," he said, his voice a touch deeper than usual. "Right," I agreed quickly, reaching for the door handle, desperate for fresh air and the safety of the crowded lab. As we emerged from the storage room, I felt like we were carrying a secret, though I couldn't have articulated what that secret was. The rest of the lab period passed in a blur of cleanup and paperwork. Alex acted completely normal, joking about his fashion upgrade and thanking me repeatedly for the shirt. But something had shifted, a subtle change in the atmosphere between us that I couldn't quite define. After lab, as we were walking out of the science building, Alex said, "I'll get this washed and back to you tomorrow." "No rush," I replied, trying to sound casual. "It's just a t-shirt." He nodded, adjusting the strap of his backpack on his shoulder. Still, I appreciate it. Not everyone would have a spare shirt handy for emergencies. I'm just perpetually prepared for my own clumsiness, I laughed. Never expected it would come in handy for someone else's acid incident. We reached the point where our paths diverged, him to his dorm on the north side of campus, me to my apartment just off the East Quad. There was an awkward moment as we stood there, neither quite ready to part ways. So, same time Thursday for the pre-lab? He asked, referring to our usual routine of meeting before lab to prepare. Yeah, definitely, I nodded. Library at 7? It's a date, he said, then immediately looked flustered. I mean, not a date, just, it's set. The time is set. I felt my cheeks warm. I knew what you meant, I assured him, though my heart had definitely skipped at his choice of words. He gave a small wave and turned to go, my blue shirt still stretching across his shoulders as he walked away. I stood there watching him for a moment longer than necessary, trying to process what had happened in that storage room. The next couple of days were torture. I found myself replaying that moment over and over, the close quarters, his breath on my face, that split second when our eyes met and something unspoken passed between us. Was I imagining things? Projecting my own feelings onto an innocent situation? Probably. Almost certainly. And yet, when Thursday came around, I arrived at the library 15 minutes early, my stomach in knots. I claimed our usual table near the chemistry reference section and spread out my notes, trying to look focused and not at all like I was counting the seconds until he arrived. Alex walked in at exactly 7, and my heart did that ridiculous flutter thing again. He was wearing his own clothes today, jeans and a green Henley that made his eyes look even more intense. And he was carrying a small paperback. Hey, he said, sliding into the chair across from me. Productive day? Just the usual. Classes, study, questioning my life choices, I joked. The college experience. He laughed, and some of the tension I'd been carrying eased. This was normal. We were normal. Whatever I thought I'd felt in that storage room was just my imagination running wild. Then he pushed the paper bag across the table to me. Your shirt, washed and folded. And a thank you gift. Curious, I opened the bag. My blue university shirt was there, neatly folded, and underneath it was a small package of my favorite chocolate-covered espresso beans, a treat I'd mentioned once when we were pulling an all-nighter for a lab report. You remembered these? I asked, genuinely touched. He shrugged, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. You said they were the only thing that got you through organic chemistry last semester. Figured I owed you for saving me from walking across campus half-naked. That would have caused quite a stir, I said, trying not to picture it too vividly. Yeah, not the kind of attention I'm looking for, he laughed. Then, more seriously, thanks again, really. Not just for the shirt, but for keeping your cool during the whole acid disaster. We make a good team. We do, I agreed, meeting his eyes across the table. There it was again, that same charged moment, like static electricity in the air between us. He held my gaze for a beat longer than usual before looking down at his notebook. So, tomorrow's lab. Titration fun, right? And just like that, we were back to normal, discussing molarity and indicators and proper titration technique. But throughout our study session, I caught him looking at me when he thought I wouldn't notice, a thoughtful expression on his face that I couldn't decipher. As the weeks went on, our dynamics shifted in subtle ways. There were more of those charged moments, hands brushing as we reached for the same beaker, shoulders touching as we leaned over a microscope, eyes meeting across the lab table with something unspoken passing between us. But neither of us acknowledged it, dancing around whatever this new awareness was. I started noticing things about Alex that I hadn't before, or maybe I just allowed myself to notice them now. How he ran his hand through his hair when he was concentrating. How his whole face lit up when he understood a difficult concept. How he had this habit of touching my arm or shoulder when making a point, each contact brief but electric. One evening, about a month after the acid incident, we were in the science building study lounge, working late on a particularly challenging lab report. The room had gradually emptied until we were the only ones left, surrounded by empty coffee cups and scattered notes. I think my brain is officially fried, Alex announced, leaning back in his chair and stretching his arms above his head. His shirt rode up slightly, revealing a strip of skin above his jeans that I pretended not to notice. We've been at this for 4 hours, I agreed, rubbing my eyes. Diminishing returns at this point. He checked his watch and grimaced. It's almost midnight. No wonder I can't remember the difference between titration and filtration anymore. That's concerning for a chemistry major, I teased. He wadded up a piece of paper and threw it at me, laughing. Shut up. You were the one who put sodium chloride instead of sodium hydroxide in the last equation. Details, I waved dismissively, catching the paper ball and tossing it back. There was a comfortable silence as we began gathering our things, the kind of easy quiet that comes with familiarity. But then Alex paused, his notebook half closed in front of him, a strange expression crossing his face. Can I ask you something? He said, his voice suddenly serious. My heart rate picked up immediately. Sure, I said, trying to sound casual. He seemed to be choosing his words carefully. That day, in the storage room after the acid spill, did you feel? I don't know, something weird. My mouth went dry. I could deny it, laugh it off, protect myself from potential embarrassment. But something in his expression made me brave. Weird how? I asked cautiously. He ran a hand through his hair, that gesture I'd come to know so well. Like something changed. Between us. He was looking down at his notebook now, not meeting my eyes. I don't know how to explain it. Just different. I took a deep breath. Yeah, I admitted. I felt it too. His eyes snapped up to meet mine, surprise and something else, relief, washing over his face. You did. I nodded, my heart hammering so loudly I was sure he could hear it. I thought maybe I was imagining things. Me too, he said quietly. I've been thinking about it a lot, actually. The air between us felt charged again, like the moment before lightning strikes. I didn't know what to say, afraid to break whatever fragile thing was forming. Alex closed his notebook deliberately and leaned forward slightly. I haven't really thought about guys that way before. But lately, with you. He trailed off, clearly struggling with the words. It's okay, I said quickly. You don't have to. No, I want to, he interrupted. I need to say this. I don't know what it means, and I'm confused as hell, but there's something here, right? Between us? I'm not crazy. You're not crazy, I confirmed softly. There's definitely something. He exhaled, a long, shaky breath. Okay, good. Not good. Well, yes, good, but also terrifying and confusing, and he stopped himself, laughing nervously. Sorry, I'm not handling this very smoothly. If it helps, my heart feels like it's going to beat out of my chest right now, I admitted with a small smile. Smooth isn't really an option for either of us at this point. That made him laugh, some of the tension dissolving. So what do we do now? He asked. It was a good question, one I didn't have a ready answer for. This was uncharted territory for both of us. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe we don't need to figure it all out tonight. Maybe we just see where things go. He nodded slowly. Yeah, that makes sense. No pressure, right? Just being open to whatever this is. Exactly, I agreed, relief washing over me. One step at a time. We packed up our things in a silence that was both comfortable and charged with new possibility. As we walked out of the building into the cool night air, our shoulders brushed, and neither of us moved away. I'll see you tomorrow? Alex asked as we reached the campus crossroads. Definitely, I smiled. He hesitated for a moment, then reached out and squeezed my hand briefly, so quickly I might have imagined it if not for the warmth that lingered on my skin. Good night, he said, a new softness in his voice. Good night, I replied, watching him walk away, my mind spinning with possibilities. I don't know what will happen next with Alex and me. Maybe that conversation in the study lounge was just the beginning of something beautiful. Maybe it was a fleeting moment of connection that won't lead anywhere. College is strange like that. A time of exploration and discovery, of finding yourself in unexpected places and unexpected people. But I do know that I'll never forget that moment in the storage room, the moment when my straight lab partner spilled acid on his shirt, borrowed mine, and took my breath away. Sometimes the most significant changes in our lives come from the most ordinary accidents, setting in motion a chain of events we could never have predicted. Life is full of these small moments that turn out to be turning points, a spilled beaker, a borrowed shirt, a shared breath in a cramped storage room. And sometimes, if we're brave enough to acknowledge them, they can lead us to the most unexpected and wonderful places. Total_char_count, 18,752.